back. I hope that you had very nice sessions, seminar sessions, 2 sessions and a pause in between. We saw that there are some small groups walking up and to and fro. We are actually at the middle of our symposium, so it's a good occasion to reflect on what has been going on so far. We've heard it yesterday. In terms of intersectional political education, various formats are important, various ways of reflecting together, and this is what we want to do today together with you. We have had this opportunity as well during the quiet discussion sessions, and now we're doing it during the plenary. We are happy that we are three nice observers. We have said it also yesterday: Jane Weiss, Maisha Auma, and Thomas Weiss. Now I will simply give the floor to whomever wants to start. I should start, though I've never done it, but I'm doing my best. I would like to wish you a good trip, because we're going to embark on a trip. We're trying to sort out the whole thing. Yesterday, what Peggy Pierce told us is actually the kind of orientation, a guideline for this symposium in terms of education, particular education, and very strongly focused on practice. That was what we want to remind us of. So to have the practical dimension of intersectionality. Intersectionality as a framework, according to you, and it's impacted by dekoloniality and diversity. And we talk about the diversity concept, which I found very important to stress. You said it's about a critical analysis of power and diversity. And this embraces recognition, valuing, and a high level of participation. That would be the objectives. And an understanding of power relations. What is happening now? Shall I do something? Bring it a little bit nearer? You said it's about sustainability, and that is an important point, because, according to my point of view, because this symposium is a kind of starting point. This is the way I understood it, the way it would aiming at creating more sustainable structures on these topics so that they can be expressed. And this also applies to the issues. So the items you talked about, dekoloniality, that is also part of the framework. In order to have a better understanding of the situation that it is characterized by colonial imbalance in terms of power, we have to find your own centrality and to also identify the empty spots. We want also to examine the highest level of discrimination, who are also experiencing multiform type of discrimination. As far as I've been aware of, these are part of the topics, and the whole symposium is also based on these topics, and these are the topics that always come. I've written a few questions. What is diversity? This is what comes always, a kind of fundamental question that is being raised by the groups. And there's a difference between that and intersectionality. Sometimes we had the impression that there was not clearly defined boundaries between the two concepts. Is diversity not kind of an empty envelope that is being used? That has been as well said in a manifold way. And then what I've said, this power structure where we operate it, and the question to know how we deal with it, and Peggy had given me as well some good insights. There's a sentence, for instance, in the structure, I am also in the structure, within the structure. That is the question, structures exist without people. So I'm part of the structure. This is the way I would interpret it. It's always about the way I'm interwoven with all these structures and intervention possibilities that we have or we don't have. Katakhinda told us that there are some possibilities to induce changes in structures in the following panel. And there are three aspects that I found, and I want to mention the body dimensions and emotional dimensions in this account of tension. What is the impact on us? And in one way or another, how is it convenient to catch them and to actually to thematize them? What are the possibilities of empowerment? How is it possible to forge alliances? And you said it, and please correct me if you were not, and also the care in terms of critical approaches against racism, on care-based critical analysis for racism, and especially the people who are performing a great deal of important work in Eastern Germany have the impression of being left alone. And they are working at the margin of the society, of the groups. And the idea emerged that, or the demands, so that there should be protection space instead of supervision. I forgot your name, sorry. And this is what you said. And that was something, a very touching moment, because I realized it's not all about processes that have just taken place. And it's not only the emotionality. You cannot actually take care of your body simply with the supervision, meaning that the politics are also a major role to play. What could be the care concepts, the protection concepts? That is really the issue. And maybe we cannot deal with it in the further course of the project. And also in terms of experience of racism, which kind of people are there when we talk about classes? This is a question, the school classes. And this is something important as well to talk about it. And the issue of voluntary work, of burnouts, in this kind of work with committed people are working, and in terms of alliances. So the connection between plenary sessions and practice, there as being as well issues like structures that have been thematized, especially when the structures are strong. And these have been questions as well, as far as I could observe. When we talk about the initiatives of Halle and Jena, for the people that are part of the POC community, there are not hardly any resonance space, and hardly any protection, and there are also some kinds of self-protection mechanism, or actually mechanisms where other groups are pushed back. When I'm talking about the dismantlement of the iPads initiatives, when we structurally and financially, they say that they're coming to the coming close to an end of their work, and they have shown in a very practical way how is it possible to change structures, and how is it possible for the people that are affected by the structures can control them. People who are affected by these topics be in control of it. How is it possible to set up categories? How is it possible to actually take into consideration the concept, the context? Maisha said it has been as well done the case for centuries with pictures and their interpretation, and she hints at a feature that was addressed to us well during the plenary. We need time in order to trigger out this kind of transformation. There are very, very big kinds of wall to break down. And sometimes you draw actually the lines, but and as some of these big kind of pieces of wood have always been actually completely drilled out. And what I find interesting for this plenary, and an important focus for us, you talked about the relation to the world of the actor in the field of education with this culture, the children that are growing up in these kind of structures and have to deal permanently with these kind of structures. It's clear children and youth of the BPOC community are affected, have to do that, but also it's a matter affecting the whole society, and it's something that is not made really very much apparent. Thank you very much, Jane, for this beautiful summary of this 1.5 days. You point out what is you find important. To begin with, I would like to thank you for being able to be there, and without my perspective to actually be able to do some observation. What has struck my mind is that there's a bigger discrepancy that seems to emerge between the funding institutions and the organizations on the other hand, who are applying for the funds and who have to actually fulfill these missions. We have to think about it, and maybe to put everything upside down. If we observe these structures, we can see that the funding institutions are there because the state institutions are not in a position to do that or do not want to do it. Instead of it, they rely on the expertise of independent funding institutions. These free, when you talk about these institutions, should be accompanied by the trust that should be granted to them. When I send an application first, it has to be examined and checked, but it should be in the, as it is the case in the other sections of the business community, you high employers, you are agree on a price and it has to be paid. And there should be still a lot of space for independent institutions so that the task should be also well fulfilled. But this really, this kind of very extremely detailed kind of checking and examination, and for instance, you apply at the beginning of the year, and in October you get the answer. It shouldn't be really the case, because if they have some cutting in the budget because it couldn't be used by the projects, it makes the things even less logical. So what is really paining me, and this is what Cynthia was saying, the question was being asked whether supervisions can be applied for in what you do. I think that the state is not allowed to grant that if you have supervision or protection items. Actually, if you have if you are an employer and if you have the duty to care for your employees, that should be part of the deal. If you are at Perba or if you are in another factory, this, you know that the work that you're performing is really, really burdening your health, and you can only say that you need support that makes supervision or even new models necessary. And these models should be aiming at caring for the person who is working so that this person can be protected, duly protected. That was, as I said, my legal perspective, and I don't want to say everything what has been exactly said, and I would go back to it, and I would give the floor to Maisha. Thank you very much for this legal perspective. Then I will test my microphone first. It seems to me that it is working. Yes, I would like to add my voice to my predecessors. I love to make some observations of conferences. It's like, you know, the way you move from one room to the other, and it's particular like a butterfly, and it's so nice to have done that with Jade and Thomas. And I was observing especially dominances, power relationships, and access. I was participating in 2 workshops. I don't want to name the workshops. It's possible also to draw conclusions, but it's not about the workshops. It's all the matter is for how we come together and how we deal topics together in. And there are some processes that has made appearance and dynamics that are also within the society. I start with the first workshop in the morning about opening processes according to a critical analysis of racism. There are 2 momentum that I would say. As I said, I was like a butterfly. I was so happy because I could have I was attend to a workshop or learning space under the leadership of 3 young Black people. It was seldom the case. I had such a good feeling about it, and this is why I was really enjoying it. And I've forgotten that was actually the topic, because there are so many dynamics that could be, you know, unfold themselves if you have a mixed space which you have people who are negatively affected by coloniality or racism, and other people who have a wide positioning. That has came very clearly. It became very clearly apparent in terms of learning, working, thinking, and that was also something that you could really feel with your body. I didn't really expect it, because I'm so naive when I'm talking, when I'm going to these conferences. And in order to give a first insight and to recollect it, in the first round, it was about examining why we need this kind of transformation according to the critical analysis of racism, where we have area of crisis. We did something what we have been doing so many times in my career. We could have needed a longer time of negotiations. 1 to 5, this was the way we used numbers 1 to 5 in order to divide it up the groups. And I could feel it as well. What were the consequences? And after that, there were 2 groups that set them a little bit apart, education scholars. And I went as an educationist, I went as with the younger colleagues, and I said that I dealt as well with this kind of situation again. Not all POC and BPOC and who are people who are affected by multiple ways of discrimination are thinking along the same lines, but we need a possibility to come together. And that was the first really big kind of issue that we had. Why do we need analysis and transformation based on a critical analysis of racism? Which kind of perspectives? Or is it possible to mobilize some perspectives? And we are talking very rapidly about the division, about access to resources and division of resources. And this is why to have a critical analysis of racism for transformative processes, this is what came out. And then we encourage people that to participate. It's all about participation. And from the positioning, and we say we are always participating as an emotional labor. That is, they enable other people to be able to work. It's in a racialized labor market, meaning that the whole way, as I was in the home office, I have to give my own experience. There are POC, post-migrantized, and factory works, and then cleanings, and people in the medicine. They were on the buses, they were in the public transport. So this idea has actually brought us to really is to go through it in such a way, because I'm not even talking about the gender dimension of labor market, so that people are working so that other people can work. So there are conflicts, lots of issues of conflicts, and we have separated groups. And I've tried to talk about resources. Mayamboka, for instance, BPUC, Afro-diasporic, and Asiatic diasporic, and a lot of other diasporic experience. And she wrote this text with other colleagues about feminist together, separated, and in common. And so that we can enjoy it, that we have a black leadership of BPOC, that we are strong, and we can learn in these kind of spaces. And then in the afternoon, that is in Zevugun, both of them are in Zevugun. During the afternoon, we have to really quarrel about ourselves. Is that empowerment? Is it still empowerment? Or can we go away with it? We have actually had a real discussion about how is it possible to do. We talked about yesterday during the panel that in one way or another you have to give discursive embedment. That's part of the response. You have a kind of rationally in the discourse when you have to play also according to the rules in order to implement our progress, in order to be able to make small steps, one step after another, toward transformation and and there are some things that I cannot repeat. And the idea of revolution or evolution, question mark, how much evolution is possible or revolution is possible. Let's dig a little bit deeper in terms of revolution. There are different kinds of state of mind. Some people say, some people have some kind of fear because revolution is incredible. Progress is something you can feel. And I found myself in all these positions. What I've tried as well to do for the first station is to say that I'm coming back to my Goboga. I was a colleague with whom I've been doing some field work about diversity and inclusion. And she had a model, the Trinema model. There is an empiric model now in order to have empiric data leading to conclusion. We need empowerment, we need normalization, we need deconstruction. As people who are facing multiple forms of discrimination, they say, yes, we have to deal with empowerment. That is no longer empowerment. So we do not take on your conception. And I'm actually exaggerating a little bit, but this is a dilemma. In order to be empowerment, you need also normalizations. We have to go along a long path of routine. We need to write and all this kind of work, and that is the idea. Diversity, dekoloniality, and intersectionality is only possible when you have a normalization. Peripici, Ines Fajanbaya is there. So I always pronounce your name in the right way, because you, as intersectional PIPOC, are actually there, and we have to. You are the team in this department in IENA, and that is normalization. Yes, and I'm working standard. I've never said it. If somebody quoted, I will say that I'm not going to say I'm in Erfurt. So it's mind blowing. You also socialized. Sorry if I said it, if it's okay for you. So these are categories that have to be recreated new. You live in this kind of setting. This is what I call normalization. Normalization can be sexy, sorry for the term, but I've not found any kind of other word. Because people say, oh, normalization is boring. No. It's normalization. Normalization can look as a way for a black child, for a Sinti child, for a Roma child, children. And to be there, it's for them. Mind blowing. This the way normalization can be, and this you made normalization sexy. Last time I say so. And deconstruction is really a painful experience.
To change those things means that we must be able to hold it in this type of conversation we had in the seminar. We have to accept that we have BPOC people occupying those positions, and we have to be able to hold it out. We have to be able to acknowledge the fact that we may have to use this vocabulary that might not be discrimination-free in the way we do, but why at the same time try to figure out how not to reproduce this type of discrimination we are all fighting against. So this is a consideration we find ourselves in. Deconstructing means to understand the power in place, but at the same time to shift those power that we are trying to deal with. So far from me. Yeah, so coming to me, the only thing I could say is thank you and to invite you to join us at the front. We have a seat free and a microphone, and you have the opportunity to get involved with what we're saying so far regard to what we have done, discussed so far. And to me, what I could identify myself regard to what Maisha said with resistance strategies, and this is what I've really kept most in mind. You try to rephrase it in different manners of as you give your resume of what was discussed during the last seminar that took place. Here we have a phrase, do not feel under pressure. You can join us up front, but the first question that I may have is if Peggy may have something to say that she has been reflecting on. We said it that yes, we have an expertise field, and we are taking a lot along after this from this symposium that we will try to implement in our work. So maybe Peggy can use the opportunity to share her thoughts while some participants trust themselves to join the expert to the front. Yes, I would like to thank you because I had the idea in my mind that we had three various perspectives. We have a that were reflected throughout this symposium so far. And I agree with you, Francisco, what you said with regard to sharing equity, and I took a lot of notices and how the structures are functioning and the legal opinion on what was said, and we have to challenge that those structures need to face and that we have to acknowledge as well. And I also wrote down the normalization has to be made sex attractive. I found it very mind-blowing, and of course this is as well a challenge for us in to be serious a little bit about it. It's not enough that we are somewhere, we found ourselves somewhere to fit in the system, we find a place in this system and to make it look sexy. And I found it pretty mind-blowing, to proceed in this manner. And it's also what I've noticed within the last one half day to see how we can keep on proceeding what we are doing in our daily life as part of our job. And this is what I always try to keep on doing, like to consider the small differences, and when we have to instant apply for submit a project application, the structures in which we're working, and many other aspects that need to be taken into consideration that necessitate shift in the way we see things, the way we work, to make the process of normalization more attractive for everybody. And now I'm pretty much excited to hear about your talks as participants with regard to what was said and discussed so far. Hi, my name is Jasonia, and first I would like to thank you for organizing the symposium. But also I would like to draw your attention on something. You just said something regard to disconstruction. Means that you have to be able to hold on disconstruction. But to me, disconstruction also means responsibility, carry on responsibility, be a responsibility. And my life personally, I can be a lot and but not necessarily share some of my thoughts to white people. And talking about it, when I like to carefully read on what I wrote down, we found ourselves in a specific setting, this room, in which we people who experience racism and this various type of discrimination are setting. We would like to network. We also like to keep on getting more competence, adding more competences, and acquiring more competences. But we also have to not acknowledge the fact that we find ourselves in a white dominant society, and and we have to deal with it. We have to deal with this reality where we are facing racism, where we are facing various type of violences, and violence does not also always have to be physical. It can also take different forms. It could take the form of well-meaning statement and terminology that can be used in different contexts and have various meanings depending on how they're being used. So it also means that we can sit in a not so safe space but still use that opportunity to learn and look around to see that if some racism racist statements are being expressed that when white people do not feel responsible or feel like obliged to carry responsibility for that we have to intervene, and I would like to shift the narrative in this sense to make sure that to say that yes, you other people in this conference are along with you, and it cannot be that if some racist statements are being made, people are sitting and they have to tolerate those words and thank at the same time the contrary people who are being working hard to make this symposium a success. So it cannot be that we let it happen. It cannot be that capitalization of wisdom production, specifically knowledge production from marginalized group, is not being considered, it's not being addressed, and there's not a recognition of that work. I think that's what I wanted to share with you. Yes, thank you very much. Responsibility is also indeed a word that I kind of heard pretty often throughout the symposium so far, and those are the things I would definitely take along, uh, generally, basically, because sometimes kind of personally feel like kind of like there's a need to talk about how we mean it in this context in which we are working. Yes. Okay, we like to join us up front again to specify how you mean it. Yes, the question that I ask myself here is, of course, I feel this that people who have been experiencing various type of discrimination, marginalization, this responsibility cannot only be carried for by people who experience this type of marginalization. The task is about giving white people, the opportunity to carry on their own responsibility, to bear their own responsibility. A lot of people talk about this construction of white being and about, for instance, on based on examples such as what do you know the meaning behind your words, how do you reproducing those type of discrimination, marginalization when you're sitting in a room where you have people from various backgrounds but among which you have Eurocentric base located individuals. So it can not aiming on perfection, cannot aspire in it. You cannot aspire for perfection that definitely cannot be achieved realistically. And that's not really what was really meant when we hear about the experience that has been shared so far, and what has been shared with us is that it's important to define what we mean when we say that we are creating a frame in which people can interact and discuss about certain things. We discuss about it today, that we need to make space, create space that will make it possible for people in their sensitivity to express themselves. And you can imagine it's not very easy to achieve, because as Maisha already reported from the seminar she attended, that she experienced some conflict in the seminar in specific settings and of this workshops, the seminar, and we all can feel it, that sometimes breathing becomes a little bit difficult, that the tension is increased suddenly in the room. So, when I feel it that way, I believe that others can feel it too. So, we feel it in a maybe different manner, but we definitely feel it. So you may have already noticed it as well, based on practical example, that all of us are in the process of learning. We are sitting physically in a room, but we are not sitting in the same learning room. So usually we have an understanding of classicism if we all understand the same word in the same manner. And based on our own personal experience, we are creating our own learning spaces, and that's why the words responsibility is a good and helpful word to maintain a space, a frame in which people can be taken along from where they are. That's how I understand you, and there you have to see differences, you have to see a diversity that is represented and that we have to take into consideration. How often have I lead or exercise and it was like, oh God, it takes forever, let me just do it 1, 2, 3, and later on notice, okay, learning processes cannot be controlled from above, but you have to give the opportunity to people, to participants, to move on from where they are, respectively. And this is what we can here take along as a process, and that's what we have experienced so far, and that will always repeat, which cannot be considered something negative, something bad per se. Indeed, conflicts actually are opportunities to learn and should be seen as such. Yes, exactly. The information has not, the chair has been freed, so you're free to join the front, the expert to front, and ask your question with regard to the reflection that is taking place on what we have discussed throughout the symposium so far. Comments, it's a comment. I only wanted to thank you for the symposium and the space that you have created, because I personally felt really good with the people here. And, I usually do not attend conferences that much, sometimes because I do not have the resources, but because I try to avoid those spaces because I tend to be the only single black person in the room. And the fact that this time around it was the contrary, where we had where I could rely with a lot of people here, and I can learn from them, I can see them as role models, and I can share my experience, my knowledge with my expertise with them. And what happened in the last seminar to which I attended, for which I would like to thank you for, because I can really say that I took a lot with me from that experience, and that was very important. And the other thing with regard to what just mentioned, in breaks time, we definitely want to have a break. And this is something that have shown the last workshop, that we did not have break because people use break to thank others. And I would like to bring your attention to it, to make sure that people have to take responsibility for themselves, to reflect on themselves. Why do I feel I have to go to this person to thank him or her? So actually, it's not something like that's giving, but you are taking something from them. Sometimes we like to say to the person, "Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I was fine to provide this work for you. It was fine that you did not say it at that moment. It's okay. So it's not so. It's not okay to wait when the moderator is done with the seminar to thank him and to feel shame that you did not do it at the time, just at the end of the seminar, to thank you. So it's not, it might not be as bad as you feel it, but this is something we can all learn from it. This uncomfortable feeling, I just really want to be here, I don't know how to deal with the situation. Actually, you don't have to do something, you don't have to say something when you feel that way. Yes, you need a t-shirt with racism critical break. Maybe I should stand up and produce a t-shirt with that. But to be serious, that's a very deep statement. I would say it, to have something like being a banger in a road, how to write about Africa. That's a racism critical break. As I was younger, in the break time, what I had to hear, I was hearing in the breakdown, why I have it have been good to hear it in a specific moment when I needed it. Thank you very much for raising that point. And now we have reached the end of this time. We have to leave here on time, but thank you one more time. Thank you very much to the three of you. Thank you to Peggy, Francesca, and and Francesca. Thank you. And now, and thank you to you, participants. Now we're going to continue with the city tour that will start on time. And those who would like to join the participant, we are meeting at the foyer. And after the city tour, the colonial city tour at 7, we're going to continue. End the day at the, we can read that information, the address on your program. Zentralheit is the name of the venue where we are going to meet after the city tour at 8 p.m. and Francesca is going to open the buffet, and then only then will the buffet be opened. And after that, we're going to have a concert of Aziz Ibrahim and band. And later on, DJ Ford Kelly is going to entertain us throughout the night. And though some of us already had an experience yesterday, evening, of her expertise. And tomorrow morning, we're going to have our last panel with Jen Weiss and hopefully Isidora Angelovic and Haiji Bors. And there we are going to talk about racism against Sinti and Roma and the report of the Independent Commission against Roma and Sintis. And after this input, we're going to have a third round of our seminar that we started today between 10:30 and 12, and that will be the end of the conference, of the symposium. So we still have some few time left that we have to spend together.